Sweetheart, this isn't a charity salon. You can't just walk in looking like that. Sarah, the white receptionist at Lux Nails, sneers, her eyes raking over Aisha Coleman's white t-shirt and jeans. The 5-year-old black CEO, stunning and poised, stands, frozen in Chicago's elite. Salon, her request for a gala manicure, dismissed Sarah's words drip with racial venom. Assuming Aisha's dark skin and casual attire scream poverty, but Aisha harbors a secret that will turn this humiliation on its head, that a truth so explosive, it'll leave the salon reeling. What's her hidden ace? Stick with us to find out if this sparks your curiosity. Hit subscribe and share where you're listening from. City Time, your vibe. What's your guess for Aisha's comeback? Stay tuned for a jaw-dropping twist. Diwa, glass doors of Lux Nails, swung shut behind Aisha Coleman, sealing her into a world of polished marble and muted jazz at 25. Her beauty was undeniable: high cheekbones, eyes that sparkled with quiet strength, and a radiant smile that could disarm anyone. But today, her white t-shirt and jeans, chosen for a hectic morning of meetings, marked her as an outsider. In this gilded Chicago salon, she clutched her phone, the weight of her CEO title at Harmony Health Solutions, invisible to the eyes, now dissecting her tonight's charity. Gala demanded perfection, and a manicure was her final task before slipping into a gown that would turn heads. She stepped toward the reception, her sneakers silent on the gleaming floor. Sarah the Rambe, receptionist, looked up from her appointment. Book her smile, a thin veneer that cracked upon seeing Aisha. Her gaze lingered on Aisha's unpolished nails, then flicked to her dark skin, a silent judgment forming. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone sharp enough to slice through the soft music. Aisha, unfazed, offered a warm smile. "No, but I'd like a manicure and pedicure." "I can wait if you're busy." Her voice was steady, professional, the kind that commanded boardrooms. But Sarah's eyes narrowed as if Aisha's presence offended in the salon's pristine aesthetic. "We're fully booked." Sarah light her fingers, not even grazing the appointment book. Empty chairs dotted the salon, their leather gleaming under crystal chandeliers. Aisha's brow furrowed, but she kept her composure. "I see. Could you check for any openings?" "I'm happy to pay for express service." She reached for her platinum credit card, its weight a quiet testament to her success. Sarah's smirk was instant venomous. "This isn't the kind of place for walk-ins," she said, her voice loud enough to draw eyes from the nail stations. "Maybe try the strip mall down the street." The words landed like a slap, their racial undertone unmistakable. Aisha's chest tightened, a familiar ache from years of navigating spaces that judged her skin. Before her character, she straightened her voice, calm but firm. "I'd like to speak to the manager." "Please." Sarah's laugh was sharp, a blade, disguised as amusement. "The manager's busy with actual clients. You're wasting our time." Aisha's pulse quickened, but she refused to shrink. She'd faced worse: boardroom skeptics, dismissive investors, and emerged victorious. This was just another hurdle before she could respond. A white woman in a designer dress swept through the doors, her heels clicking with authority. "Sarah, darling." "My usual," she called, tossing a Birkin bag onto the counter. Sarah's demeanor transformed, her smile now syrupy and genuine. "Of course, Karen. Right this way, champagne." Karen nodded, barely glancing at Aisha as she was ushered to a station. The contrast was glaring, a silent message. "This is who belongs here." Aisha's jaw clenched, but she pressed on. "I'm not leaving until I speak to someone in charge," she said, her tone unwavering. Sarah rolled her eyes, but the commotion had drawn attention. Emily, the manager, emerged from a back office, her tailored blazer as crisp as her expression. Her eyes swept over Aisha, lingering on her jeans with thinly veiled disdain. "What's the issue here?" she asked, her voice cool but laced with impatience. Sarah jumped in her words, dripping with condescension. "She's demanding a walk-in appointment, But we're booked, doesn't seem to get it. Aisha's patience frayed, but she kept her voice level. I asked for a service offered to pay extra and was told to go to a strip mall. That's the issue. Emily's lips pursed her gaze, hardening. We maintain a certain standard here. Ma'am, our clients expect a specific experience. The word ma'am felt like a jab. Patronizing in its formality, Zisha's eyes flashed with defiant standards based on what I'm a paying customer. Karen, now sipping champagne at her station, snorted loudly. Some people don't know their place, she said, her voice. Carrying across the salon, a few technicians smirked their silence. Complicit only Mia, a young technician. Polishing tools looked uneasy, her hands pausing mid-task. Aisha's heart pounded not from embarrassment, but from the raw injustice of it all. She'd built a multi-million-dollar company. From nothing, sat on boards and funded scholarships. Yet here, her worth was reduced to her outfit and skin. I'm preparing for a gala tonight, she said, her voice rising slightly. I just need a manicure. Why is that a problem? Sarah leaned forward, her smirk. Cruel a gala. Sure, and I'm dining with the mayor tonight. Laughter rippled through the salon. Karen's the loudest. Aisha's fingers curled into fists, but she refused to let them see her. Break. Emily stepped closer, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You're disrupting our client's leave. Now or I'll have security escort you out. Aisha's breath caught disbelief wearing with anger for asking for a service. That's your justification. Emily's eyes were cold, unyielding. We reserve the right to refuse anyone who doesn't fit our image. The word image hung heavy, the euphemism for prejudice. Karen clapped slowly, her applause a mocking punctuation. Finally, some order, she said, sipping her drink. Mia's discomfort was palpable. Now, her eyes darting between Aisha and Emily. Aisha caught her gaze, a fleeting moment of shared understanding, but Mia stayed silent. The other technicians resumed their work, dismissing the scene. Aisha tried one last time, her voice steady. Despite the fire in her chest, my husband and I are attending a major event tonight. I'm not here to cause trouble. Sarah scoffed, cutting her off. Husband. Let me guess. He's a rapper or something. The racial stereotype was blatant. The salon's laughter, a chorus of complicity. Emily gestured to a security guard lingering near the entrance. Enough. Escort her out. The guard, a burly man with a hesitant expression, approached. Ma'am, please, he said, his voice low, almost apologetic. Aisha's eyes burned not with tears, but with resolve. She'd faced this before: classrooms, boardrooms, even her own neighborhood. But the audacity here in a place meant for beauty cut deeper. She stepped toward the door, her head high, but paused to face. Emily, you're making a mistake, she said, her voice a quiet thunder. Emily's smile was smug. The only mistake was letting you through the black door. As Aisha reached the exit, the weight of every stare pressed against her back. Karen's amusement, Sarah's triumph, the client's indifference, but beneath her calm exterior, a fire burned. This wasn't over. Outside, the Chicago skyline loomed indifferent to her humiliation. She pulled out her phone, her fingers hovering over Daniel's number. She hadn't planned to involve him, but the salon had crossed the line. What she didn't know was that Daniel's Porsche was already speeding toward her, his meeting cut short by a gut feeling. The stage was set for a reckoning, one that would shatter the salon's pristine facade. The glass doors of Lux Nails thudded shut behind Aisha Coleman, the Chicago evening air, sharp against her flushed skin, her heart hammered not from defeat, but from a righteous fury that pulsed through her veins. The salon's laughter still echoed in her ears. Sarah's cruel jabs, Karen's mocking applause, Emily's cold dismissal. At 25, Aisha had faced prejudice before, but this public shaming in a place meant to pamper. Felt like a betrayal of something deeper. She stood on the sidewalk, her white t-shirt catching the glow of streetlights. Her jeans a silent rebellion against the salon's elitism. Her fingers hovered over her phone. Daniel's contact glowing on the screen, she hesitated, pride wearing with necessity. She didn't need rescuing. But this wasn't just about her anymore. Inside the salon resumed its polished rhythm. Sarah flipped her hair, basking in her small victory, while Emily retreated to her office. Her smugness unshaken, Karen perched at her station, regaled the technician with a story about her latest Hamptons getaway, her voice loud enough to drown out the soft jazz. But Mia, the young technician, lingered near the polish, racks her hands trembling as she rearranged bottles. Aisha's final words, "You're making a mistake," rang in her mind. Their warning. Mia couldn't shake she'd seen this before. Clients turned away for their appearance, their accents, their skin, but Aisha's dignity, her unyielding grace under fire, had cracked something open in Mia's chest outside. Aisha took a deep breath, the city's hum grounding her. She wasn't the broke outsider. They'd painted her as she was. A CEO, a visionary, who'd turned Harmony Health Solutions into a beacon for underserved communities. Her gala tonight wasn't just a social event. It was a fundraiser. She'd organized raising millions for youth mental health. Yet here she stood, reduced to a stereotype by people who'd never know her worth. Her thumb grazed Daniel's name, but before she could press call, a low familiar purr cut through the urban den. A silver Porsche Panamera glided to a stop, its sleek frame a stark contrast to the salon's gaudy opulence. Daniel Coleman stepped out his 32-year-old frame, radiating a quiet power in a charcoal suit that cost more than Sarah's monthly rent. His blue eyes, usually warm, were steel as they found. Aisha, the sidewalk, seemed to hush passers-by, slowed, drawn to his magnetic presence. He crossed to her in 3 strides, his hand brushing her arm. "You." "Okay, love." His voice was low, a storm brewing beneath its calm. Aisha's lips twitched, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "They threw me out," Daniel said. "I don't fit their image." The word dripped with venom. Her hurt laid bare. Daniel's jaw tightened, a rare flash of anger crossing his face. "They said what?" Inside, Sarah glanced through the glass doors, her smirk faltering as she spotted the Porsche Karen mid-sentence, followed her. Gaze her champagne flute pausing at her lips. "Who's that?" She muttered, sensing a shift in the air. Mia, still at the polished racks, froze her, heart racing. Daniel pushed open the doors. Aisha at his side, her poise unshaken. The salon's chatter died, replaced by a tense silence. Sarah scrambled to her feet, her professional mask slipping. "Sir, welcome to Lux." "Nails." She stammered, her eyes darting between Daniel's suit and Aisha's casual attire. "Do you have an appointment?" Daniel ignored her, his gaze sweeping the room like a predator sizing up prey. "I'm here for my wife," he said, his voice a blade of ice. The word wife landed like a grenade shattering. Sarah's composure, Karen choked on her drink, her eyes widening. Emily emerged from her office, alerted by the sudden quiet, her confidence wavering as she registered Daniel's presence. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her tone less certain than before. Daniel turned, his eyes locking onto hers. "You tell me you just escorted my wife out for daring to ask for a manicure?" Aisha stepped forward, her voice clear and cutting. "I told them I was preparing for a gala. They laughed, said I didn't belong." Her words hung in the air, a challenge to the room's complicity. Sarah's face drained of color, all her earlier bravado crumbling. "We didn't know," she stuttered, her hands fumbling with the appointment book. Daniel's laugh was cold, devoid of humor. "Didn't know what that?" She's Aisha Coleman, CEO of a company changing lives, or that she's worth more than your entire chain. The salon felt smaller, its opulence dwarfed by his words. Karen shifted uncomfortably, her earlier smugness replaced by unease. The other clients avoided eye contact. Their manicures. Suddenly fascinating, Mia, still clutching a Polish bottle, took a hesitant step forward, her voice barely above a whisper. They didn't give her a chance, she said, her eyes meeting Aisha's. They assumed because of her clothes and her skin. The admission was a spark, igniting. A flicker of shame in the room. Emily's eyes narrowed, but her authority was slipping. This is a misunderstanding, she said, her voice tight. We have policies. Policies, Isa interrupted her, tone sharp. You mean prejudice? I offered to pay to wait, and you mocked me her. Gaze shifted to Sarah, who flinched. You said, my husband must be a rapper care to. They guess again. The question was a dagger, exposing the salon's ugly biases. Daniel's hand rested lightly on Aisha's back. A silent anchor, he turned to Emily, his voice low but lethal. I'm an investor in Lux's parent company. Your policies just cost you more than you know. He pulled out his phone, his fingers poised to dial a number that could unravel Emily's career. The room held its breath, the weight of consequences settling in. Karen's champagne sat untouched. Her bravado extinguished. Sarah's hands shook, her earlier cruelty. Now a noose around her neck, Mia's eyes glistened, a mix of fear and resolve. Aisha stood tall, her beauty amplified by her strength. Her casual attire, a badge of authenticity in a room of artifice. The salon's facade had cracked, and the truth was seeping through. Daniel's call connected, his voice clipped as he spoke to someone on the other end. We have a problem at the Gold Coast location. I want a board review. Now Aisha's eyes met Mia's again, a silent acknowledgement of her courage. The guard, still lingering by the door, shifted uncomfortably, his role in Aisha's ejection now a source of regret. Outside the Porsche gleamed a symbol of the power about to upend this small, prejudiced world. The stage was set for a reckoning, one that would ripple far beyond these walls. Aisha's humiliation was no longer just hers. It was a spark that would ignite change, and the salon was about to learn the cost of judging a woman by her skin. The Billionaire and Lux nails crackled with tension, the silence so thick it seemed to choke the soft jazz piping. Through the speakers, Daniel Coleman stood like a sentinel, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice a low growl as he issued orders to the board. Aisha Coleman, radiant, despite the sting of her earlier ejection, held her ground beside him, her white t-shirt and jeans a defiant contrast to the salon's ostentatious gleam. Her eyes, sharp with resolve, swept the room, daring anyone to meet her. Gaze. Sarah, the receptionist, clutched to counter her knuckles. White, her earlier arrogance reduced to a trembling facade. Emily. The manager stood rooted, her tailored blazer, no shield against the unraveling of her authority. Daniel ended his call with a curt, expect my follow-up. Tonight, the phone slipped into his pocket, but his presence loomed larger, storm cloud over the salon's polished veneer. He turned to Emily, his blue eyes piercing. You had a choice, he said, each word deliberate. You chose to humiliate my wife. Now you'll face the consequences. Emily's lips parted, a desperate defense forming, but Aisha stepped forward, her voice cutting through like a blade. This isn't just about me, she said, her tone steady but laced with fire. How many others have you turned away, judged, mocked? Her question hung a mirror held up to the room's complicity. Karen, the privileged client, shrank in her seat, her champagne flute abandoned her earlier. Bravado extinguished by the weight of Aisha's words. The other clients, their manicures half finished, stared at their hands, unwilling to confront the truth reflected back at them. Mia, the young technician, stood near the polish, racks her breath. Shallow her earlier admission, they didn't give her a chance, had been a spark, and now it threatened to ignite something larger. She clutched a bottle of crimson polish, its color, a stark reminder of the courage she'd summoned. Her eyes met Aisha's, and for a moment, a silent pact formed between them. Emily found her voice, though it trembled. Mr. Coleman. We had no idea who she was if she'd explained. Daniel's hand rose, silencing her. She shouldn't have to explain, he said, his voice low. But seismic Aisha offered to pay to wait, and you laughed. You assumed her worth. Based on her skin and clothes, he paused, letting the accusation settle. That's not to a misunderstanding, that's prejudice. Sarah flinched, her eyes darting to the floor. Her earlier taunt about Aisha's husband being a rapper now, a noose tightening around her Emily's face, crumpled her authority, dissolving like sugar in rain. Aisha's gaze shifted to Mia, whose quiet courage had shifted the room's dynamic. You spoke up, Aisha, said her voice, softening, but carrying weight that took guts. Mia's cheeks flushed, but she knotted her grip on the polished bottle, steadying. I've seen it before, she said, her voice stronger now. People turned away for no reason, except how they look. Her words were a pebble in a still pond, rippling through the salon. A middle-aged client, her nails half painted, shifted uncomfortably. Her silence a confession of witnessing similar slights. The guard by the door, who escorted Aisha out, looked away, his regret palpable. Daniel's eyes narrowed, his focus returning to Emily. I've seen your standards in action, he said, his tone deceptively calm, their veneer for discrimination, and I'm done funding it. The revelation that he was an investor hit like a thunderclap. Karen gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Sarah's knees buckled and she gripped the counter harder, her world tilting. Emily's eyes widened, desperation creeping in. Sir, please, we can make this right, she pleaded, her voice cracking. A complimentary service. Anything. Aisha's laugh, sharp and unyielding, cut her off. You think a free manicure fixes this, she said. This is about dignity, not discounts. The salon's opulence felt hollow now, its chandeliers casting harsh light on the ugliness beneath. Aisha turned to the clients, her voice rising with purpose. You watched, she said, her eyes scanning the room. Some of you laughed, some looked away, but silence is complicity. Her words were a challenge, a call to reckon with their inaction. The middle-aged client's hands trembled, her polish smudging as she gripped her purse. Another client, a young woman with perfect curls, met Aisha's gaze, her expression a mix of shame and awakening. The room was no longer a sanctuary. It was a courtroom, and Aisha was the judge. Mia stepped forward, her voice gaining strength. I'm tired of pretending this is okay, she said, her eyes blazing. I've watched clients like her leave humiliated, and I said, nothing, not anymore. She set the polished bottle down, a small act of defiance that echoed like a gavel. Emily's face twisted, her control slipping entirely. Mia, think about your job, she hissed. But Mia shook her head. I'd rather lose it than keep quiet, she said, her words a beacon in the dimming light of the salon's prestige. Daniel's hand rested on Aisha's shoulder, a silent vow of support. He turned to Emily, his voice final. You'll hear from the board. By morning, this location's practices end. Now the promise was a death nail for Emily's tenure, and she knew it. Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears, her earlier cruelty, a weight she couldn't shed. Karen, once the loudest voice, sat mute, her privilege exposed as fragile. The clients caught in the crossfire grappled with their roles in this drama. Bystanders, who'd enabled the system now crumbling. Aisha's chest rose and fell, her anger tempered by a clarity of purpose. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here for the truth. Her gala awaited a stage where her vision would shine, but this moment mattered more. It was a stand for every person who'd been judged, dismissed, erased. She looked at Daniel, a silent signal passing between them. They'd exposed the salon's rot. But the fight wasn't over. As they turned toward the door, Mia's voice rang out soft but resolute. "Thank you," she said, her eyes locked on Aisha, "for showing me what courage looks like." The doors loomed ahead, the Chicago skyline, visible through the glass, a reminder of a world beyond these walls. The salon's facade had shattered, and the truth stood bare. Aisha's steps were steady, Daniel's presence, a quiet strength beside her. They were leaving but not retreating. The reckoning had just begun, and its echoes would ripple far beyond Snails. The silence in Lux. Nails was a living thing, heavy and suffocating, as Aisha and Daniel Coleman stood poised to leave the salon's once invincible aura. Lay in shards, chandeliers, casting jagged shadows over a room. Stripped of pretense, Aisha's white t-shirt glowed under the harsh lights, her jeans a testament to her authenticity in a space that worshipped artifice. Daniel's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, his charcoal suit a quiet declaration of power. Their presence had turned the salon into a stage, and every eye was fixed on the drama unfolding. Sarah, the receptionist, stood frozen behind the counter, her tears silent but damning. Emily, the manager, clutched her blazer, her authority reduced to a crumbling facade. The clients, once complicit in their silence, now squirmed under the weight of their inaction. Mia, the young technician, stood apart, her crimson polished bottle abandoned on the rack. Her defiance had ignited a spark, and now her eyes burned with a resolve that mirrored Aisha's. The words she'd spoken, "Thank you for showing me what courage looks like," hung in the air, a bridge between her and Aisha forged in the heat of truth. But the moment was far from resolved. Emily, sensing the tide turning against her, made a desperate lunge for control. "Mr. Coleman, please," she said, her voice a brittle plea. "Let's discuss this privately. We can resolve this without involving the board." Her eyes darted to Daniel, searching for a lifeline, but found only steel. Daniel's response was a single cutting word. "No." The finality of it echoed a gavel striking the salon's fate. He turned to Aisha, his gaze softening for a fleeting moment. "This isn't about negotiation," he said loud enough for the room to hear. "It's about accountability." Aisha nodded, her own resolve unwavering. She stepped forward, her voice clear and resonant. "You built this place on exclusion," she said, addressing Emily. "But speaking to everyone, you judged me and others by what you saw, not who we are. That ends." Today, her words were a manifesto, a call to dismantle the invisible walls that divided this space. Karen, the once vocal client, sat mute, her designer dress no shield against the shame creeping up her neck. Her earlier taunt, "Some people don't know their place," now felt like a confession of her own complicity. A young client with perfect curls who'd met Aisha's gaze earlier stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "I'm done here," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "This isn't what I thought it was." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, her exit. A crack in the salon's polished armor. Another client, the middle-aged woman with smudged polish, hesitated, then followed her footsteps. A quiet rebellion. Mia's breath hitched her, courage swelling. She stepped closer to Aisha, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I'm quitting." She declared, her words slicing through the salon's tension. "I can't work somewhere that treats people like this." Emily's face contorted a mix of fury and panic. "Mia, you're throwing away your career," she snapped. But the warning fell flat. Mia shook her head, her eyes locked on Aisha. "No, I'm choosing my integrity." The statement was a beacon illuminating the rot beneath the salon's glamour. The security guard, still lingering by the door, nodded almost imperceptibly, his earlier role in Aisha's ejection now a source of quiet remorse. Daniel's eyes flickered with admiration as he watched Mia. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a business card and handed it to her. "Call me tomorrow," he said, his tone professional but warm. "My company needs people with Your spine. Mia's eyes widened, the card trembling in her fingers. It was a lifeline, a chance to escape this toxic world, and she clutched it like a talisman. Aisha smiled, a rare softness breaking through her intensity. "You're going to do great things," she said. Her words, a promise, not a platitude. Mia's tears brimmed, but she stood taller, her decision cemented. Emily's desperation boiled over. "This is absurd," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You can't just dismantle everything over one incident." Aisha turned her gaze, piercing one incident, she said, her voice low but lethal. "This is a pattern you've made people feel. Small, unworthy, and invisible. That's your legacy." The accusation landed like a physical blow, and Emily staggered back, her blazer creasing under her grip. Sarah's sobs broke the silence. Her earlier cruelty. Now a weight she couldn't bear. "I didn't mean it," she whispered. But no one listened her. Apology was too late, drowned by the truth. Aisha had laid bare the salon's truth. Clients, once a chorus of indifference, were now a fractured audience. The young woman's exit had sparked a chain reaction, and two more clients gathered their belongings, their faces, a mix of guilt and resolve. The middle-aged woman paused at the door, turning to Aisha. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "I should have said something." Aisha nodded, her expression softening but unyielding. "You can start now," she said, a challenge and an invitation. The woman's eyes glistened, and she stepped into the evening, her departure, a small act of atonement. Daniel's phone buzzed, a message from the board confirming an emergency meeting. He glanced at Aisha, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded, her gala still hours away, but this moment more urgent. "Let's go," she said, her voice steady. They moved toward the door, their steps synchronized, a united front against the salon's crumbling empire. Mia followed her decision to quit, propelling her forward. The guard held the door, his eyes meeting Aisha's with a flicker of respect. "Ma'am," he said, softly, a far cry from his earlier reluctance. As they reached the threshold, Aisha paused, turning back one last time. The salon looked smaller, now its opulence. A hollow shell Emily stood alone, her career teetering on the brink. Sarah's tears stained the counter. Her regret, a belated awakening. Karen's silence was deafening, her privilege exposed as powerless. The remaining clients grappled with their roles, some staying, others preparing to leave. Aisha's voice rang out final and clear. "Change starts when you stop looking away," she said, her words a seed planted in the room's fractured soul. The doors swung open, and the Chicago skyline greeted them, its lights a promise of a broader fight. Daniel's Porsche awaited, a sleek reminder of the power they wielded. But it was Aisha's strength that defined this moment. Mia clutched Daniel's card. Her future, unwritten but bright. The salon's reckoning was underway, and its echoes would reshape more than just these walls. The Chicago evening wrapped Aisha and Daniel Coleman in a cool embrace as they stepped onto the sidewalk, the glass doors of Lux Nails slamming shut behind them. The city's pulse, the HR, honking cabs, distant laughter. But for Aisha, the weight of the salon's prejudice lingered like a bruise. Her white t-shirt fluttered in the breeze, her jeans grounding her as she stood tall, her beauty undid by the ordeal. Daniel's hand found hers, his grip a quiet vow, his charcoal suit catching the streetlight's glow. Mia, the young technician who'd chosen integrity over complicity, trailed behind, clutching Daniel's business card like a lifeline. The Porsche Panamera gleamed nearby, a sleek sentinel awaiting their next move. Inside the salon was a fractured tableau. Emily stood motionless, her blazer creased, her career teetering on the edge of Daniel's promise board review. Sarah's sobs had subsided, but her red-rimmed eyes betrayed a dawning regret, her earlier venom, now a poison in her own veins. Karen, the once smug client, sat rigid her designer dress a hollow armor against the shame of her silence. The remaining clients whispered, their manicures forgotten, grappling with the choice to stay or leave the guard. His earlier reluctance, now a quiet solidarity, watched the trio depart. His nod to Aisha, a wordless apology. Aisha paused, her gaze lingering on the salon's glowing sign. They thought they could erase me, she said, her voice low but resonant, a spark in the dusk. Daniel's eyes met hers, his anger tempered by pride. I know who they were dealing with, he said, his tone a mix of fire and reverence. Mia, still processing her leap into the unknown, spoke softly. I've never seen anyone stand up like that, she said, her voice trembling with awe. You made them see. Aisha's smile was small but genuine. Sometimes you have to break the mirror to show the truth. Daniel glanced at his watch. The gala was hours away, but this moment demanded closure. He turned to Mia, his voice steady. My team will reach out tomorrow. We're building a startup focused on inclusive tech. You'd be a fit. Mia's eyes widened, the card in her hand. Suddenly, heavier. I'm just a nail tech, she said. Doubt creeping in. Aisha shook her head. You're someone who chose right when it was hard, she said. That's rarer than you think. Mia's shoulders straightened, a flicker of confidence igniting. She nodded, tucking the card into her pocket. Her future no longer bound. Deluxe nails. The city's rhythm pulled them forward. But Aisha's thoughts lingered on the salon's deeper wound. This isn't just about one place, she said, her voice gaining strength. It's about every space that makes people feel less. Daniel squeezed her hand, his eyes blazing. We'll change that, he said, a promise. Not just to her, but to the unseen others who'd faced the same scorn. Aisha nodded, her mind already racing toward solutions, initiatives, partnerships, and ways to amplify voices like Mia's. The gala with its glittering promise felt secondary. Now this fight was her stage, a block away. They reached a small, vibrant salon. Aisha knew from her college days its neon sign read glow. Haven, and through the windows a diverse staff laughed with clients of every background. The contrast to luxe. Nails was stark, no judgment, only warmth. Aisha led the way inside the bell. Jingling as they entered, a black woman with a bright smile greeted them. Aisha. Being too long, she said, pulling her into a hug. Heard you're running the world now. Aisha laughed, the tension easing. Just trying to fix it a little, she said, gesturing to her nails. Got time for a quick manicure? The woman, Nia, nodded, ushering them to a station. As Aisha settled in Nia's deft hands, worked her chatter a balm, Mia watched her nerves settling in this inclusive space. Daniel leaned against the counter, his presence understated but grounding. This is what a salon should be, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Aisha met his gaze in the mirror, a shared understanding passing between them. Glow. Haven wasn't just a stopgap, it was a reminder of what they were fighting for, a world where worth wasn't measured by appearances. Back at Lux Nails, the cracks widened. A client, emboldened by the earlier defection, stood and left her. Half-finished pedicure. A silent protest. Another followed. Then a third. Their exit, a slow bleed of the salon's prestige. Emily, sensing the collapse, dialed her regional director, her voice frantic. It was a mistake, she pleaded, but the line went cold. Her fate sealed. Sarah, wiping her tears, stared at the appointment book, its pages. A record of her complicity, she whispered to herself. What did I do? A question too late to answer. Karen, alone at her station, slipped out quietly. Her privilege no longer a shield. Aisha's nails now polished. A deep sapphire caught the light. As Nia finished, ready to slay that gala, Nia said, grinning. Aisha stood, her poise restored, her spirit unbroken. She hugged Nia, slipping a generous tip into her hand. Keep shining, she said, her voice warm. outside the city, buzzed its energy, fueling her resolve. Mia still clutching, Daniel's card spoke up. "I want to help," she said, her voice firm. "Whatever your building I'm in?" Aisha's eyes sparkled. "We'll need you," she said, her words and invitation to a larger fight. Daniel's phone buzzed. A board member confirming Emily's suspension pending review showed Aisha the message. His expression resolute. "It's a start," he said. She nodded, her mind already on the gala, where her speech would call for systemic change. The Porsche waited its engine, a soft purr as they approached Leisha, paused, glancing back at Glow, Haven's Glow. "This is what we protect," she said, her voice. Avowed. Daniel opened the car door, his smile fierce. "And what we build," he added. Mia climbed. In her fear replaced by purpose, the city stretched. Before them, a canvas for justice, and Aisha was ready to paint the Chicago. Skyline glittered like a crown as Daniel's Porsche carved through the city's veins, its engine a low hum. Beneath the weight of the evening's events, Isaac Coleman sat in the passenger seat, her sapphire nails catching the dashboard's glow. Her white t-shirt and jeans traded for a shimmering emerald gown that hugged her. Curves and radiated power at 25. Her beauty was a force, high cheekbones, eyes, a light with purpose and a presence that commanded without effort. Daniel, in a tailored black tuxedo, stole a glance, his admiration unspoken but clear. Mia in the back seat clutched Daniel's business card, her simple blouse, a stark contrast to the gala's impending opulence. The luxe, nails ordeal lingered, a raw wound. But Aisha's resolve burned brighter her. Focused now on the fundraiser. She'd poured her soul into the gala held at the Adler. Planetarium was no mere social affair. It was Aisha's brainchild, a beacon to fund youth mental health programs through Harmony Health Solutions. As the Porsche pulled up, valets scrambled their eyes, widening at the car's sleek frame. Aisha stepped out the night air, kissing her bare shoulders, her gown, a cascade of light under the venue's celestial dome. Daniel offered his arm, his pride, a quiet flame, steady and unspoken. Mia hesitated, caught between awe and nerves. The grandeur of the Adler Planetarium pressing down on her like the weight of another world. Then Aisha turned to her, her smile warm, certain, an anchor in the swirl of glitter and glass. "You're with us," she said. Her voice carried the kind of assurance that made stepping forward feel inevitable. Mia nodded, inhaling courage. She didn't know she had. She followed them in, her fear eclipsed by the simple grace of belonging. Inside, the gala thrummed with the city's elite. Philanthropists in bespoke suits, socialites shimmering in diamonds, policymakers whispering beneath crystal chandeliers. Overhead, constellations spun across the dome ceiling, stars cascading across Aisha's emerald gown, until she seemed lit from within. She moved with elegance that turned heads, her presence impossible to ignore. Daniel walked beside her, quiet but unyielding. He was less a shadow than a shield, letting her brilliance shine while standing ready to guard it. Mia trailed a few steps behind, her eyes wide, taking in every gesture, every glance. To her, this world was overwhelming. To Aisha, it was a stage she had earned through resilience and fire. The string quartet played softly, but the true music was anticipation. The night belonged to Aisha, her speech already whispered about in corners of the room. Weeks of preparation, each word a thread woven from data and stories. Numbers braided with the lives of children who had found hope in her programs. And then a face, familiar, unwelcome. Karen, she sat at a high table, sequined dress, glittering under the lights, her posture taut to her expression. A cocktail of discomfort and defiance. Only hours earlier, she had slipped from the salon in shame. Now she perched among her peers, clinging to the armor of status as though diamonds could erase memory. Aisha's lips curved, not in cruelty, but in clarity. Karen's presence was proof. Prejudice did not vanish when the scenery changed. It only wore new clothes. "She's here," Aisha murmured to Daniel. He followed her gaze, jaw tight, his eyes narrowing before softening with restraint. "Let her squirm," he said evenly. "Tonight's yours." The MC's voice sliced through the room, summoning her to the stage. Conversations hushed. Glasses still. All eyes turned. Aisha rose, her gown trailing behind her like a comet's tail. Each step was deliberate, steady, her pulse thrumming but unbroken. Adjusting the microphone, her sapphire nails gleamed under the lights. "Good evening," she began, her tone velvet wrapped in steel. "Tonight, we are here to change lives. But first, I want to share a story, one that happened only hours ago." The crowd leaned forward, sensing something unexpected. "Today, I was thrown out of a salon, not because they were full, not because they lacked time, but because of my skin, because of my clothes. They saw a black woman in a t-shirt and decided I wasn't worthy." The words landed like a blow. Gasps echoed through the hall. Forks froze midair. Silence stretched, thick and electric. Karen's face drained of color. Her sequins could not shield her from the truth now burning through the room. Daniel, at the edge, carried pride like fire in his chest. Mia felt her heart swell, her own courage, reignited by Aisha's fearlessness. But that moment, Aisha pressed on, her voice rising, was not the end. It was the beginning. Because every child we fight for tonight faces that same judgment. In their schools, on their streets, in the very systems meant to serve them. The world tells them they are less. We are here to declare they are enough. Her words struck with weight and clarity. Harmony Health Solutions isn't just about programs, she continued. It is about building a world where worth is never measured by appearances. Applause rose hesitant at first, then swelling, rolling into thunder that shook the hall. Karen stayed seated. Her sequins no longer gleamed. Aisha pressed forward, her voice weaving stories of resilience. Teens pulled back from despair. Families steadied. Lives reclaimed. The numbers mattered, but the faces behind them mattered more. And then came her call to action. "Look around you," she said, her voice resonant. "Who is missing from this room? Who has been told they don't belong? Invite them in. That is how we changed the world." The response was electric. Applause thundered. Phones lit up with donations. Pledges poured in, a tide rising higher than anyone expected. Daniel's smile burned fierce, his faith in her unshakable. Mia clapped until her hands stung. Her choice made clear. She would no longer stand on the sidelines. When Aisha descended from the stage, the crowd surged forward, hands outstretched, voices clamoring to catch her vision. Karen slipped away quietly, sequins dulled by shame, her exit swallowed by the roar of change. Daniel reached her first, his voice low but burning with pride. "You set it on fire." Aisha laughed, relief laced with resolve. "We're just getting started." Mia stepped forward, her voice steady for the first time. "I'm ready," she said. "Whatever you need, I'm all in." Aisha's smile gleamed, fierce and luminous. "Welcome to the team." Outside, Chicago stretched vast and brilliant, the skyline glowing like a canvas for possibility. The gala had raised millions, yes, but more than that, it had carried a truth from a private wound into the heart of the city. For Aisha, that truth was not an ending. It was the beginning of everything. The Adler Planetarium's glow faded behind them as Aisha and Daniel stepped into the Chicago night. The gala's triumph still pulsed in their veins. Aisha's emerald gown shimmered beneath the starlight, its folds a testament to her victory. Her sapphire nails gleamed a quiet reminder of the battle she had carried into that room and won. At 25, she was radiant, fierce, a vision whose fire had ignited more than applause. It had sparked a movement. Daniel, immaculate in his black tuxedo, walked beside her, his hand steady at the small of her back. His pride was unspoken but absolute, a silent hymn only she could hear. Mia followed close, her simple blouse transformed by newfound purpose. Daniel's business card tucked like a talisman in her pocket. For the first time, she felt the city belonged to her too. The Porsche Panamera waited at the curb, its silver body gleaming like a promise. They slid inside, the leather cool beneath their palms. As the engine purred to life, the skyline stretched before them, a canvas for what they had begun. That speech, Mia said softly, almost reverently. It wasn't just words. It was truth. Aisha turned, her smile luminous. Truth only matters if we act on it. You're part of that now. Mia nodded. Her fear was gone, replaced by a hunger to build. From the driver's seat, Daniel glanced at Aisha in the rearview mirror. His voice was low. Certain, you changed the game tonight, and we're just warming up. A week later, Aisha stood in her office at Harmony Health Solutions. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Her desk was cluttered with plans for a new initiative, a training program for diverse beauty professionals funded in part by Daniel's venture capital. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, but her sapphire nails still gleamed, a symbol of where the journey had begun. The Lux Nails incident, once a wound, had become fuel. Her phone buzzed with messages, donors inspired by her speech, activists eager to collaborate. Daniel walked in, carrying 2 coffees. He had traded tuxedo polish for the ease of a sweater. Setting a cup on her desk, he said, Lux is replacing its entire management. New policies, mandatory diversity training. Aisha's eyes sparked. It's a start, she said, sipping the coffee, grounding herself in its warmth. But we're going bigger. She gestured to her plans, her voice alive with vision. This isn't just about salons. It's about giving people seats at the table, skills, confidence, power. Mia entered, then transformed in a crisp blazer. The apron she once wore at Lux was gone. She had begun working at Daniel's startup. Her role, small but growing. Her insights were sharp, honed from years of watching exclusion. I've been researching, Mia said, pulling out a tablet. There's demand for inclusive beauty training, especially in underserved areas. Aisha leaned in, her mind racing. That's our focus. Start local, scale global. Every graduate becomes a change maker. Mia grinned, her transformation a mirror of Aisha's own. News of Lux Nails spread quickly. The Chicago Tribune published an expose, sparked by whispers from gala attendees, chronicling the salon's discriminatory practices. They never named Aisha at her request, but the story resonated. Social media erupted. Hashtags like No More Standards trended, amplifying her call. Sarah, now jobless, sent a letter of apology halting Raf, confessing her bias and vowing to learn. Aisha read it, her heart open but firm. Everyone deserves a chance to grow, she told Daniel, folding the letter. But actions, not words, prove it. Karen, once the silent witness at the gala, vanished from Chicago's social scene. Her absence was its own quiet confession. Meanwhile, former clients of Lux Nails began a grassroots campaign, sharing their own stories of exclusion. Their voices formed the chorus, strengthened by the spark Aisha had lit. When she met with them, she listened, her presence a catalyst. You're not alone anymore, she told them, her voice steady, a lifeline. We're building a world that sees you. Soon after, Aisha and Daniel hosted the launch of the training program. It was modest, held in a community center, but the room was filled with faces that reflected the city's diversity: teens, single mothers, immigrants, all eager for a chance. Mia spoke first, her voice steady. She shared her journey from silence at Lux Nails to this stage. I was invisible once, she said, her eyes seeking Aisha, but now I'm here to lift others up. The crowd cheered, hope almost tangible. Then Aisha stepped forward, her gown replaced by jeans, Her crown replaced by authenticity, she raised the mic, her voice unwavering. "This," she said, "is our table, and everyone is invited." The room erupted. Applause, cheers, the sound of a future being built. As the event ended, the three of them stepped into the cool night. Stars glittered above, scattered across the Chicago sky. "You made this real," Daniel said, his voice thick with love and pride. Aisha leaned into him, her smile fierce. "We did, and it's just the beginning." Mia joined them, her blazer sharp, her future bright. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "For seeing me." Aisha pulled her close, their embrace a testament to change. "You saw yourself," she whispered. "That's the power." The Porsche gleamed nearby, but it was no trophy, it was a tool. Aisha's gaze lifted to the skyline, its vastness. A challenge she was ready to meet. The scar of Lux's nails had healed into strength. The gala speech had sparked a blaze. She had turned judgment into justice, exclusion into embrace. "What's next?" Daniel asked, daring her with his smile. Aisha's eyes burned with light. "Everything," she said, her voice carried into the night like a promise to the world.